The secret of steel has always carried with it a mystery. You must learn its discipline, Conan. You must learn its secret. For there is no one, no man, no woman, not even a beast, that you can trust. But this you can trust. I totally botched that quote. Hello everyone, this is Royce Miller coming back at you with yet another propped up. Except this isn't a film prop. This isn't and certainly, it's definitely not Conan's father's sword. It's not even the Atlantean sword from the film. Uh, so, the bread and butter of enthusiasts of masks and mask accessories, such as myself, or, like props and costumes and stuff, especially, is the day after Halloween. Because that's when all the Halloween stores throw their stuff on sale, like 50% off. Usually is about the amount. And I went to a local Halloween store that was having its after Halloween sale and found this beauty. Look at it. Oh, it's so big and nice, and it fits so well in my hand. This is a replica longsword. You can tell it's a replica because the blade is dull. Well, it's got a little bit of a point at the end of it. Nothing that you could still do some damage with this, but not too much. This is done by the Toledo swordsmiths in Spain. Now, how do I know this is a prop? Well, one, the blade is a little flimsy. You hear that ting? That ting would not be there if it were thick. That is the vibration of a thin metal. Look at that blade. That is way too thin for a long sword. Also, because at 50% off, I got this for $60. Now, 60 times 2 is 60 times 60 plus 60, 50% of 120. Sorry, I shouldn't have been as pretentious with that as I was. And that is way less expensive than the actual swords Toledo sells on its website. Now, I tried to email them and ascertain the origin of this particular blade, if it was based on anything, but was not able to. However, it is a lovely piece. Look at this wire-wrapped handle. You have this, the pommel has a nice, looks to be some kind of, almost a Roman legionnaire on one side, and then, as though it were a coin, it's got a coat of arms on the other. Looks like a knight's helmet over a shield with some filigree, and then you have eight circles around another square that's got a moon in it, or it could be a banana. And then on the hilt, or on the handguard here, you have more lovely filigree, more of this legionnaire's head on both sides. And then finally there's some engraving on the blade here, which is what really drew me to it, because I love engraved blades. Obviously, I think the most famous one would be Excalibur. God, why did that take so much to say? Anyway. So you have this chandelier-looking piece up here, followed by two naked people holding flowers. I think they're women. And then a very similar helmeted head to this. It might not be a Legionnaire's helmet. It might just be like a medieval helmet of some kind. And then you have these crossed swords behind a tunic, which makes it look like, I don't know, some kind of impaled torso or something. And then the same head facing the other way. Some kind of fey beast. Because, it's got, horns or something. I'll let you see. Here, well, I'll do a zoom by for you. So there's the chandelier, there's the women, there's the first head, there's the impaled torso with Toledo, Spain on it. And then there's the head again, and then there's the two fey critters. Given that it reminds me of Excalibur, and it was created by the Toledo swordsmiths, or at least I believe it was. At the very least, it was created in Toledo, Spain. Why else put Toledo on it, or Toledo, Spain on it? But as such, I decided to name this blade the Holy Toledo. Oh, that's so dumb. It's just a beautiful sword. It's like, yes, it's not battle ready, but like, look, I'm not buying this to kill someone with. I'm buying it to look nice. What, do you think I'm going to be swinging a long sword in the zombie apocalypse? No, I'm going to be. If zombies did exist, I'd be lunch meat. People who collect, like, the only people who collect, like, actual combat effective weapons are, especially, like, medieval combat weapons, are historians or LARPers. And I am neither. I'm just a guy who likes a pretty looking sword. And, like, if we want to get into it, the sword is, well, it's one of the, well, we'll get into that part later, but like, a sword like this is clearly a ceremonial blade. Like, it's got a very fancy crossguard. It's got a much thinner blade. This is for knighting people. This is for commanding a cavalry. This is not to fight with, even if it were real. Well, okay, it is kind of real, but you get what I mean. Honestly, the most realistic part of this to me is the wire wrap guard. There's the wire wrap on the hand, on the handle, whatever you call this part, the hilt. Oh, like this, the hilt, I guess. I don't know, this shaft. Oh yeah, like that. That visibly shook when I clapped it like that too. It's but no, the I also think it's interesting, like, what weapons mean to us, like, especially like melee weapons, because I've been doing a lot of thinking about that recently. As someone who likes writing characters and giving them like special toys and stuff, what each weapon means. Now, the sword I think is most obvious. The sword is regal. It is noble. It is the weapon of elegance. It takes a lot of effort to be a good to be a good swordsman. That said, a sword never won a battle. Halberds, poleaxes, spears. Those are your most effective weapons in a melee combat scenario. At least that's what I remember the weapons people saying. I could be wrong. I'm not exactly a historian or particularly versed on battle tactics. But just because, like, here's the thing: the sword, it was held by knights, it was held by kings, maybe generals, but it was not held by infantry. I mean, I think the Romans had the gladius, but that was not their main weapon. Their main weapon was a spear. Combined with their shield, they formed a phalanx and were absolutely deadly because they were a heavily armored, like they were basically a spiked turtle walking around. But so yeah, the sword is, I think, because it's associated with knights and the like valor knights and chivalry. It is considered the nobleman's weapon. It is considered a noble, good weapon. Think about it. When you have a good sword, it looks like a normal sword. When you have an evil sword, they have to do all kinds of shit to make it look evil. Like when you look at Frostmourne from World of Warcraft, the Lich King's sword. It's this insane, jagged piece of metal with like skulls and spikes and all this other like unnecessary crap that would actually make it less combat effective. Like no, even this ceremonial sword. Notice how nothing is blocking the handguard, or nothing is blocking the handle. The only time you want something blocking the handle is when it's actively protecting your hand, like a dueling saber. You know, the ones that have that nice little cup that goes over your hand. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments. Look, feel free to correct me. I mean, I'm just a novice. You know, I'm not pretending to know a bunch about weapons. I'm just here to tell you what I think they mean. So, I think, and so then I suppose next we should go to kind of the opposite of what is the antithesis of the sword? I think probably the scimitar or scimitar, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Um, it is a sword, but because it's foreign looking, people associate it with less noble pursuits. This is the European version. This is the white man's sword. But because we associate the scimitar or scimitar, whatever you call it, with the Middle East or whatever, people are like, oh, that's the bad guy sword. Even Tolkien wasn't immune to this. He had orcs wielding scimitars in Lord of the Rings, which is very strange to imagine. Uh, they kind of fix this in the movie by having them look more like cleavers, which was a better design to me, because like it looked like something that you would hack a person apart with, which is what an orc would do because they are cannibals. They eat people. Meat's back on the menu, boys. Um, a scimitar is a slashing weapon. Like you wouldn't use a slashing weapon in a fight, because people are wearing armor. Like all that thought into like the language and the topography of Middle Earth, and he didn't even stop to think like, oh wait, oh wait, people wear armor. Scimitars can't pierce. Maybe I should rethink that. Now, for piercing weapons, and what will be most effective against armor, the pole arm, which is the pole axe or whatever, the spear, and the halberd. Those are your most devastating weapons on the battlefield. Mid-range weapons, lots of reach. You can use them as a stick to beat someone with. You can use the blade on the end. You can use the axe to. Yeah, there's even like a spear point on this end too. So like, the polearm is unfortunately like probably the apex of melee combat, because it is just this weirdly perfect design. You know, until the invention of the bow and arrow, he who had the longest reach was the victor. How did Abe Lincoln get out of a sword duel? He took swings at a tree to prove his reach. But those aren't elegant weapons to people. Those are, especially, well, the spear is such a primal weapon. We associate spears more with, like, you know, cavemen, or, if you're racist, tribals. Which is so unfair because Europeans use spears. Like, we were using, like, white man was using a spear here since ancient Greece. It's not fair to be like, this civilization that is pretty much, of a very advanced type uses spears, so that makes them inferior to us. I'm speaking specifically about a certain racial epithet that Chevy Chase used. Well, it was part of the bit. Like, he was in a skit with Richard Pryor where he played a racist interviewer and used that term. Anyway. So, but despite being a primal weapon, the spear is arguably one of our most effective. It's Occam's razor. The simplest solution is often the best. What's good against armor? Puncture damage. You can't slash through chainmail and steel, so you gotta either bash them really hard to break something, or punch through the plate and mail. Anyway, next you have the mace and the flail. Now, the mace and the flail are two of the most devastating weapons, and as such, they are associated with villains. They are such a brutal, disturbing weapon to use. Like, think about who you have with the mace and the flail. Sauron uses a mace. The Witch King uses a flail. Friend of the show, Bardic Broadcasts, has subscription notifications when people subscribe to him on Twitch, and it'll be they're from the 1952 film Ivanhoe, which is a more historically accurate version of the events surrounding Robin of Locksley, Robin Hood. And it's from the end of the film when there's a duel between the good guy and the bad guy. And you can kind of tell everything about them from just the lines they say. If you get the bad guy, he says, or because they're asked to pick a weapon for the fight, and the bad guy says, "I favor the mace and chain this day." But then the good guy just says, "I choose the axe." There's a smarminess to it. And, the mace makes sense because it is a spiked ball on a stick. It is a bashing weapon. It is there to kill. It is there to just basically turn your enemy's skull into putty. The flail, though, I don't know. The flail makes no sense. And, I know. People are like, oh, well, it's actually really good if you know how to use it right. The problem is, a weapon should be easy to understand. Look at the sword. You grab it, and you slash people with it. Or you stab people with it. Simple. The flail is a ball on a spike attached to a stick. You can't use that effectively the first try. You are not winning a fight with that your first try. If you are going to use a mace, or if you are going to use a chain weapon, you'd be better off holding the chain yourself, because when you put that chain on the stick, that weight is giving extra torque to the stick, so it's harder to compensate. And I'm just saying what I'm imagining right now. I don't know how correct I am. If you're a swords person or if you're a weapons historian, please feel free to either back me up or call me an idiot. Most likely an idiot, but nevertheless, I persist. And it's weird that I'm using the sword to illustrate all of these, but it's this is the thing I'm holding. And then it's weird that the axe, which is also a very brutal weapon, is more associated with heroes. Again, I'm assuming the main character's name is Ivanhoe, and Ivanhoe chooses the axe. Tyrion Lannister picks an axe and lops a dude's leg off in Game of Thrones. Gimli uses an axe. The axe is the weapon, but the axe is the weapon of excuse me. I feel like the axe is the weapon of the executioner. It is there to cut a limb off. When you're using an axe, it is because you want to drive this blade into someone as far as it can go. And to do that, you are increasing the arc of the blade, increasing the force with which you can bring it down. Because, like, that's why long handles exist, is so that you can add more force to the top. Um, the hammer is the weapon of the barbarian. I think that's pretty obvious. Everyone, like, Thor is usually kind of a dumbass. Well, I mean, or at least like a himbo kind of guy. Um, Reinhardt has supposed to be chivalric, but I don't know. He does kind of. He's kind of the barbarian of the group, just because, like, even though, well, he's at least the bruiser of the group of the Overwatch people. Who else uses a hammer? Honestly, hammers aren't used as much in media, even though they could be. Like, I do believe warhammers really existed, and in the modern day, a sledgehammer would make an excellent weapon. Actually, just realized the hammer is the weapon of Tom and Jerry. They bite and fight and bite and fight and bite, fight, fight, fight. That was itchy and scratchy. Sorry. Anyway, I'm trying to think if there's any other, like, throwing weapons are dumb. You know, you're not going to kill someone with a kunai or a throwing star, unless it's poisoned. Maybe, I don't know. You have some fugu you can use. Um, the katana. The reason why they folded the steel, and again, I feel bad quoting Eurocentric weapons historians because I feel like they may have a bias. But because the guy I'm thinking of specifically, a British dude who talks a lot about mall ninjas and stuff, did shit talk the katana a lot. It, I think the katana is kind of is very much the Japanese equivalent of the sword because, well, one, it is a sword. Two, because it was a weapon of samurai, of these, like, honor bound warriors who followed a very strict code of ethics. Well, unless you were that one guy who carved a boat oar into a sword and killed a dude with. Oh, that I forget what his name was. Hanamushi. I don't know. I heard about him on Puppet History. I have a very eclectic knowledge about all sorts of dumb subjects. Not enough to be actually considered intelligent in any of them, just eclectic. Jack of all trades, master of none. Hell, not even a jack, more like a 10. Maybe even a 9. Because I'm assuming when they say jack, they mean the card jack. Oh yeah, so this is just I just wanted to show off my pretty sword. And, now I can do all my Conan quotes with a sword in hand. Oh, or what is best in life? Crush your enemies, seize them before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women. Which is a really weird thing to say, the lamentations of their women. I guess it's not the worst thing they could do to their women, but yeah, like, oh, I just want to hear you cry. Oh, Lord. Conan the Barbarian is a fantastic film, and yet a little, like, it's problematic in the way that most sword and sorcery is problematic. It's very intense subject matter. Specifically, I'm thinking of when they breed Conan as a slave. Which, oh Lord, that's no. Um. Also, there's that really weird scene where a witch tells Conan that he's got to sleep with her to get her to give him the information he wants, and then after she does, she, like, tries to kill him, turns feral, and then I don't know. It's a weird movie. Okay, if you've not seen Conan the Barbarian, it's got obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's got Max von Sydow. James Earl Jones, the villain, and he's awesome. You killed my snake. Thorgrim is beside himself with grief. He raised that snake since the time it was born. Oh, what a loss. People do not grasp what they do. You broke into my house, stole my property, killed my servants and my pets, and that is what grieves me the most. And what I think is really fun about Thulsa Doom is that, at least in the Conan movie, he's kind of right. Because he tells Conan that steel does not matter as much as the flesh that wields it. And it's true. Conan gets his father's sword back, but it's only because he is Conan, because he is trained in gladiatorial combat, because he's led this intense life of, having to fight for survival. It's interesting because, sword and sorcery is simultaneously a very, machismo-driven genre, but it's also a very nihilistic genre. The gods of this world are uncaring. Magic is completely is 99% evil. I think because Mako plays a wizard. Oh my god, I forgot to say that Mako's in the film. General Iroh. Oh god, what else has Mako been in? Honestly, mostly I think Aku from Samurai Jack, but mostly people either know him as the wizard from Conan, Samurai Jack, or Aku and Samurai Jack, or General Iroh. I think he was also in Surf Ninjas, and I think he voiced Splinter in the 2007 Ninja Turtles movie. Anyway. But yeah, it's because it. Toxic fantasy. And I know this sounds like a really weird subject to get to, but just because we're on it. Toxic fantasy, I think, relies around determinism. Destiny. Aragorn is the king because he is destined to be. Or Aragorn becomes king because he is destined to be. Conan the Barbarian is not. I would argue is not destiny driven. Yes, it is told to you at the very beginning that Conan is destined to that Conan will become king. And I do believe they may use the word destined. But the thing is he isn't given this divine decree by a deity. He becomes a king through his own hard work. The dude the dude has so many effing jobs within his own world. He's a pirate, he's a gladiator, There's this line in the book where he joins a pirate crew where he says, "Not exactly my idea of a manly weapon, but if I can't feather a man on yonder vessel, then things should go poorly for me." Even Conan's not above using superior technology. And that's kind of what Conan is about how we use technology. Because steel is technology. Steel is an alloy. The riddle of steel is how to purify iron. Yeah, no, this. And don't expect any videos of me slicing bottles in half with this. Like I said, it's a kind of a fragile blade. It's not meant for that kind of work. It's meant to look nice. And it does look nice. Anyway. I shall see you all next time. With maybe a more Christmas-oriented, propped up. This is Royce Miller, and this is Holy Toledo. We're outie.